Yesterday, Joppa did have another stream. It was a shorter stream, and I'm going to go over the main topics of discussion here while we're running back. So, the named spawn increase rate was the first thing that they kind of talked about in the stream. So he wants to increase and change the named spawn rate a little bit, not necessarily make specific items more available, but just change the rate and see how it goes. So you might see stuff that's 10% chance to spawn increase to a slightly higher chance. He's not going to give exact numbers, but that is kind of the beginning thing that they've talked about. The next thing is basic things being fixed versus adding new things to the game. That was a discussion. A lot of people have asked this question many, many times. Why are we adding new things to the game when there are plenty of things broken in the game? I've even asked this question many, many times, and he kind of gave a little bit of an answer around the 39-minute mark. And kind of discussed that a little bit. The main reason is because they are a small team, which, we all know that they're a small team, and that's why some of the things aren't getting fixed. But the main reason that he gave that it was like, okay, that's understandable, is because we might want, thing A fixed, and they have to do thing B before they can address thing A. And that's kind of on like a programming standpoint. So they need to have a specific person that's working on thing C to then come over and address thing B so that somebody else can address thing A. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense to a lot of people. There's obviously been a lot of discussion about, well, why do we keep adding new things to the game? There's like I said before, there's so many things that need to be fixed already in the game. So that's the reasoning for that. The next thing that I want to discuss is modding. He did bring up modding a little bit. Modding in this game is not currently available. However, Joppa is basically under the thing where he says that it could be a thing in the future, potentially. It's a bit of a slippery slope kind of situation because he doesn't want it to end up being like World of Warcraft, where you have dozens of mods that are required to pretty much play the game. And if you don't have those mods, then you're at a major disadvantage. So he doesn't want that to happen, but he also feels that modding is a huge part of a lot of games, and the community oftentimes does great things for games. So he wants to look at potentially, the modding of this game and allowing modders to add some things, but they want to be careful with what you can mod. Another thing, let's see, quickly go into the abilities. Okay, so basically it was that they're aware that a lot of classes are lacking abilities, and that discussion kind of led into another ability down at the 55-minute mark time where they talked about adding new abilities to the game. And Joppa basically said, we don't want to add too many abilities to the game because there's only so many ways, that the example that he gave, there's only so many ways that you can nuke a mob with a wizard. It becomes redundant at some point. So we can't just, add new abilities. It's not as easy as that. Then there was the discussion of, well, what about upgrading abilities? And currently the game does have that where they upgrade abilities, and they are looking at that because they do know that a lot of classes are lacking. So that was around the 50-minute mark, 55-minute mark area. During that, they also talked about the consideration tables. So a lot of the reasons why we're not getting a lot of balancing changes and not a lot of new abilities is because they want to get that consideration table fixed first. And what I'm talking about with the consideration table is it's currently 5 levels above and below your a 5-level range effectively above and below. So you go to dark blue, light blue, green mobs below you, and then you have yellow, orange, and red mobs above you. And that is basically a hard set table. And he wants to make that more of a percentage of your level. So that's what consideration is going to hopefully turn into in the future. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. And they want to get that fixed prior to going in and adding in a lot of new abilities, and then those abilities not working out the way they want it to. Biggest things on the radar for the team right now in the near future is SP itemization. So lots of content coming there, which we've heard about in many different streams. But then also Drakes in AVP. I wonder if 7 will actually resurrect me. How nice. And then Drakes in AVP, which I didn't hear about anything about that right there. So that's awesome to hear that they are going to be adding some stuff to the Drakes over in AVP. Let's see what else. There was some speculation on or some discussion about lull. So lull is an ability that allows you to reduce the aggro range on mobs, so that it makes it easier to pull mobs. And there was some discussion on that. Lull is not in the place that they want it to be. Hopefully they are able to work on that in the future. So we'll see how that turns out. Next up, mastery. A little bit of mastery discussion around the 1 hour, 8 minute mark. Mostly speculation on that. But effectively, the mastery points will give players different options to differentiate their character from one character to a different character of the same class. So one player might go heavily into this area and another player might go heavily into this area, making the characters play a little bit differently. They went over a little bit more of the con system after that, expanding that. Currently, the gray mobs are still not tuned properly. So gray mobs will hit you as if they were white con, and you hit them as if they are white con. So the penalties are still not tuned properly on that. They're going to have penalties on those gray mobs to where their defense and stuff is penalized, and your defense gets a bonus against those types of mobs, making it much easier to kill those gray mobs. Another thing that they're looking at is Mad Moor. So I don't know if anybody is of that level, but Mad Moor is an area within Wild's End that is the high level area where the bog is, the bog walkers, the creeps, some high level feralings. They are looking at that and adding some love to that. Hopefully soon. Did not give a time frame on that. Need before greed roll is coming in, and whenever that does come in, it will be an automatic roll. When you hit the need or you hit the greed or whatever buttons, it will automatically roll it, and then that person will be assigned the loot. They talked about that a little bit at the 1 hour 23 minute mark. 1 hour 25 minute mark. More group synergy. They talked. Somebody asked a question, basically saying, "Hey, are we going to get more group synergy other than just the debuffs that we have?" Something where you have like the wizard can. I mean, I guess they already have that in a sense with the wizard or the enchanter being able to put a proc onto your melee classes to add a proc to their attacks. So they did talk about that briefly. But one of the examples that he gave, which you could kind of debate if it's good or not, but one of the examples that he gave was summoners may be able to summon this giant, amazing monster, and then an enchanter will be able to then charm that said monster, and it's a temporary, super powerful pet. Something along those lines would be really cool, but they would obviously have to make that balance. So he kind of discussed that a little bit at the hour 25 minute mark. Moving along, a new area is coming that is going to be a level 35 to 40 area. It's going to be kind of the pinnacle area of the game. It is coming soon, trademark. We don't know where it's going to be. He did not say where it's going to be, but if you want to try to speculate, at the hour 30 minute mark, he does show a little bit image from that, very small glimpse. And, it looks a lot like Hownir Cave, different areas. He shows like a door that, he says that some people may be able to recognize the door. So you can go check that out at the hour 30 minute mark and see, if you know where that may end up. The area is supposed to be very, very, very big. And he did kind of allude to something along those lines previously called the Ash Breather Caves in a different stream. So I'm wondering if those two are tied together. I thought the Ash Breather Caves, though, was something over in the SP area. But in this case, I believe he said during this that it was not in Silent Plains. So we'll have to see. After that, it's mostly just showing off things in Unity 6. He went into Hownir Cave, ran around for a little bit, talking about the lighting in Unity 6. Of course, it has a lot of depth. We have gone over that about a million times. It has depth. Cool. Awesome. Glad that it has depth. And then there is a roadmap. He actually said, and I quote, "We do have a roadmap." So this is at the hour 52 minute mark. They do have a roadmap. It just is not published yet. So they do have a roadmap. Sorry if you can hear the plane in the background. I apologize. Nothing I can do about that one. At the 155 hour 55 minute mark, they're looking at the new EP stuff. So the new, what would they call the Night Watch or something like that? The werewolf type group, kind of Knoll-ish. They're looking at that a little bit. So, a lot of lot of information on that if you want to go check it out. It's basically going to be the new stuff coming in on Wednesday, so you can just wait and see on Wednesday if you want to see that. Next is the FD testing. So we found out that there is going to be a fix or a change to the feigned death coming in on Wednesday. So Joppa went over some of the testing of feigned death and to see if it worked properly, and it does work much, much better than it did previously. He also mentioned that feigned death fails a lot and does not feel very good until around level 28 is when it's supposed to be more successful. So a lot of people that are lower level, are not getting that feigned death to go off as often, and it fails quite a bit. As you get higher level and your skill goes up in feigned death, it does become more reliable. So he did talk about that briefly. And then the fixes that are coming in for feigned death mean basically what's changing in that is if you take damage after you feign death, it doesn't put you back into combat. So you could have a dot on you, or a mob could be casting a spell and you feign death, and then you still take damage from the spell that they were casting. Those dots still continue to tick. However, it doesn't put you back into combat. So that was a big, big change. Some people were also talking about HOTS. There's a lot of HOT testing after this, like around the 2-hour, 45-minute mark. They were talking about HOTS, which are heal over times, and how they affect pullers and how they affect monk feign death. There's a lot of discussion on that. If you want to get involved in that, then by all means, go and listen to that whole thing. But effectively, some people think that, HOTS should not be causing aggro after the HOT is cast. It should just be front-loaded aggro, which basically means that when you cast the spell and put it onto the target, that's when the HOT gives aggro, but the HOT shouldn't give any aggro after that. And then other people are saying, no, the HOT should absolutely give aggro after that. And there's kind of a debate going on there. I don't think personally that the HOT is going to change that much. If you put a HOT onto a puller and that puller goes and pulls a mob and a tick of that heal lands, it's going to then put threat to whoever put the heal over time on the puller. So that's just the way that it works. I don't think that Joppa was kind of in the same boat that I am, not fully understanding, I guess, where people are trying to get that change other than just make the game simply easier. And I don't think that's a change that's going to be coming anytime soon. The last two things that I want to talk about, he did mention PvP. I personally don't care about this, but for those that do care about this, at the 2-hour, 24-minute mark, he said that PvP internal testing is hopefully this week. Not guaranteed that it will be this week, but hopefully internal testing will be this week. And then they're going to hopefully release the PvP server sometime after that testing is finished. And then finally, the ignore command. There's an ignore command coming to the game. He talks about that a little bit at the 2-hour, 51-minute mark, where you're going to be able to ignore other players. So that's pretty much it for the update and what they talked about over on Joppa's stream last night. Not a whole lot of new information. Nothing really crazy jumped out at me, but that was pretty much a big overarching sweep of the stream. And that's going to be it.